WWE can be really weird sometimes. Who else is able to make promises in front of millions of people and then just decide not to pay any of it off? If your friend did that, you wouldn't accept it. And you'd break up with your partner if they guaranteed they wouldn't cheat on you and then went and did it anyway. But for some reason, more often than not, World Wrestling Entertainment gets a free pass. Maybe we all just know deep down they're out to hurt us. It was the same in 2019 though, and as that year has recently ended, let's go through it and remind ourselves of some doozies that simply vanished into dust. I'm Simon from What Culture. Do me a New Year favor and hit that subscribe button. This is the 10 biggest promises WWE broke in 2019. Number 10, Daniel Bryan's big announcement. Let us go back to Extreme Rules. After Daniel had lost his tag team titles alongside Eric Rowan, he flipped out and promised a career-altering announcement that would change everything. It got the mind racing because what was it gonna be? Was he retiring again, coming back to the good side, leading WWE entirely? We all wanted to know. That was foolish of us, however, because we should have known this was gonna go nowhere. Bryan came out on the following SmackDown, pretended he was gonna say something but didn't, and from there it was just quietly phased out. It was clear there was no plan and nobody could come up with anything good, so it never went anywhere. Annoyed about this now I think about it. I really wanted to see what it was going to be, but nope, I'm not allowed. I tell you, sometimes I get so mad. Number 9, a Raw Money in the Bank cash-in. A week before WWE jetted off for Super Showdown, Paul Heyman said that Brock Lesnar would cash in his Money in the Bank briefcase. That meant there was a target on Seth Rollins' back, and he wasn't gonna make it to Saudi Arabia with gold around his waist. Yeah, right. This was even more bizarre because the Beast did attack Rollins and pretty much murder him in a wrestling ring, but then decided not to cash in. I mean, Seth was right there on the floor pretty much dead, and yet apparently this wasn't a good enough opportunity to reclaim the world title. Maybe Lesnar actually wanted to murder him before he made his move. The justification was that Brock and Heyman were playing with the WWE Universe, but why would they care about that? Mind games they called it, but this was not an in-your-house show from the mid-90s. It was just a dumb thing to do. If you want the belt and the person who holds that belt is destroyed on the floor, pin him and win. Sometimes it really can be that simple. I mean, there's plenty more to discuss when it comes to the world title in 2019, but don't worry, we're gonna get there. Number 8, the Women's Tag Team Division. I mean, we did get some women's tag titles and the promise that it would build throughout the year. Let's be honest, it did not. When Sasha Banks and Bayley won the belts, it felt like a new dawn, especially when they promised to defend them on Raw, SmackDown, and even down in NXT. There were no rules, no obligations. They were going to storm through WWE and make these shiny trinkets mean something. But nope, once again, this did not happen. Soon after this, they were traded to the Iconics who barely got on television, and while the Kabuki Warriors' reign has been better, there's still this idea that they are single stars more interested in that road than what they can actually do together. Being a tag team was like a matter of circumstance. Even when Charlotte and Becky Lynch were drafted in, the Raw Women's Championship stood taller. That didn't make any sense. We really should have started to unite plenty of teams throughout the year before they went on to try and get these belts, but barely anybody did that. If you're watching this before February 2020, it did indeed take less than 12 months for the newest prize under Vince McMahon's watch to feel like every single other title they had. I do not know, but I do know sometimes I cry myself to sleep at night about it. Number 7, Brock Lesnar on SmackDown. On the 14th of October, Raw, Stephanie and McMahon announced during the draft that Brock Lesnar would be heading to SmackDown. It was a major reveal as Lesnar hadn't been there for years, and it made it very clear that WWE was taking their move to Fox seriously. And then it all changed. Less than 1 month after this, Heyman and Brock quit SmackDown to head back to Monday nights because they were super mad at Rey Mysterio. This came after Lesnar had ruined Kofi Kingston for that world title in less than 10 seconds, and you've got to imagine someone in this situation was not pleased. It didn't feel like a well thought out plan. It also made the draft and brand split look ridiculous again, and why talk of ironclad contracts became eye-rolling material. All you needed backstage was a random idea, and anything set in stone was broken down and ignored. Makes you sad, doesn't it? I told ya. Number 6, moving on from Brock as WWE champ. A lot of the build around Rollins versus Lesnar at WrestleMania was that Seth was coming to save fans from the hold Brock had over the Universal title. A lot of people were bored of the Beast being the champ but never being on Raw, and that was Rollins' major aim. He was going to save the belt and ensure it could feature each and every week on TV. It sounded nice, and the commentators made sure to underline this was the idea and that this was the plan. While that did happen initially, WWE booked themselves into a corner when they had Brock win the Money in the Bank, which meant he was always going to win the belt back, and then he lost it to Seth again at SummerSlam before just going and taking Kofi's title instead. It means we ended the year in the exact same place we started it, even though we were meant to move away from that, or again, that's what we were told. It was disappointing as taking the title away from Lesnar would have opened up more interesting feuds with guys who WWE weren't going to put in championship programs. I, for one, would still like to see Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley, for example, but we can't do that until Brock becomes a special attraction as opposed to the constant man. Will it ever change? Well, going by the past, no. Number 5, SmackDown's fresh presentation. It just made sense, right? You're moving to Fox, they love sports, SmackDown needed a facelift. Why not use this as a stepping off point to completely change up the look and feel of the show? WWE made hints about this too, and yet here we are in 2020, and nothing has damn well changed. In fact, it's arguably more sports entertainment than ever. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is such a missed opportunity because WWE's major programs need a fresh lick of paint, and this was the time to do it. We started well, given that The Rock and Cain Velasquez made big impacts, but weeks after we had people dressing up like fake dogs. As I'm recording this too, Raw just pulled a 2.4 rating, which is basically what SmackDown is doing on a weekly basis. That was not the idea, especially as Fox is a far bigger network than USA. It is going to be an interesting 12 months. Number 4, the brand split. Something that irks me so much and I don't know why, probably because I'm a massive nerd. I actually believe that the October draft would finally draw a line between Raw and SmackDown. WWE went out of its way to promise that would be the case, and the days of the wild card or random jumps were done, and that makes sense too. It was beyond dumb to have separate brands and yet a roster that can do whatever they want. Somehow, though, it got even worse. Sami Zayn was able to get round it by obtaining a manager's license, which was nonsense, and while Lesnar had to quit SmackDown, Bayley just walked into Raw and beat up Becky Lynch and Shayna Baszler. Who the hell needs rules? The truth is, there is never going to be a definitive divide when stories are being written last minute. If you see a certain superstar and think they can fit into an angle, you can just throw them into the mix. Man, does it annoy me. It feels like a slap in the face every single time. Number 3, a guaranteed title change. 24 hours after Seth Rollins and Kofi Kingston had won their respective world titles at WrestleMania, they clashed on Raw. WWE told us this was a winner-take-all match, meaning we all believed they were going to unify the belts. This sounded like a good fresh idea, and a hot post-Mania Raw crowd was pumped to see what direction we were going to go. We should have known. Less than 5 minutes after this started, the Bar got involved, broke things up, and it became just another tag team bout. It was the worst outcome and took a major idea and flushed it down the toilet. It pissed off the live crowd, as you would imagine, and did anything ever come of Rollins, Kofi, Sheamus, and Cesaro? Of course it didn't, it was just there, because stuff just happens. The audience began to chant AEW, which is never a good sign, and somehow the powers that be managed to take 2 red-hot baby faces and have them booed before the night was done. I mean, that is genuinely impressive and probably deserves a medal, although not a medal anybody should ever want. Number 2, Eric Bischoff and Paul Heyman. When the news broke in late June that Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff were coming back to WWE to run Raw and SmackDown respectively, there was a feeling of excitement in the air. We all knew that Vince McMahon would never give up control completely, but even a persuasive word from 2 people the wrestling world was very familiar with could be enough to change things up. It felt exciting, and then almost as soon as it began, nothing changed. Heyman has certainly gone out of his way to try and push the likes of Aleister Black and Buddy Murphy, which has been appreciated, but is Raw all that different? Not really, and as for Eric, well, he's not even with the company anymore after he got let go in late 2019. It was a bit like the Daniel Bryan announcement that started this list, in that it sounded wonderful and yet didn't have anything on the other side. It was just there, and likely done to appease stockholders who would also recognize these names. Don't forget that we did still get a Lana Lashley wedding at the end of the year, meaning that the more things change, the more they actually stay the same. Number 1, less McMahon Presents. At the end of 2018, the McMahons and Triple H came to the ring, apologized to the fans for not doing a better job, and promised big changes, one of which would be less of them on TV. Fast forward to WrestleMania 35, and Shane couldn't have been on programming anymore. Triple H was feuding with Batista, and Stephanie was reveling in the downfall of Kurt Angle. I'm glad we listened to them. Vince was also back as he revealed the wild card rule, and really, if you take 2019 as a whole, they were just as present as they always have been. To be fair, their influence was far less the last few months, so maybe 2020 is when this actually starts to happen, but let's face it, you just know at some point, here comes the money, is gonna hit, and we're all back into that. The lesson? Just take everything you're told with a pinch of salt. You will be a lot happier. Know of any other promises WWE broke in 2019? Make sure to let us know in the comments below and try not to let it break your heart. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe to What Culture Wrestling. Then head over to whatculture.com and read yourself some articles. Follow What Culture on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. And look, you're on the YouTube channel now anyway. Why not watch some more videos? My name is Simon from What Culture. Thank you very much for listening and watching and all of those things. And I tell you, I will never break your heart. I don't need to see anybody cry.